Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jarduli here. It's been a long day. I had a show earlier. Of course, AM Wake Up this morning, a great show. Went over a lot of the stuff we're seeing at the WEF. Klaus Schwab, of course, as healthy as can be, not sick. That was false rumors out there. Also, Henry Kissinger spoke today and said that Ukraine should join NATO. Kind of moonwalking from what he said several months ago, when he said that this is nuts and absurd, and now he's back aboard. And it seems like everybody's aboard for war, and that kind of sucks, especially when it comes to the mainstream media and suppressing our voices and suppressing our movements out there so we can't get the message out. But, we're going to continue to have shows like this, continue to voice our opinions, continue to try and push the truth out as much as possible. And you guys make it possible. I can't thank you guys enough for going out there and constantly supporting us. If you don't know, Fiorella is actually in the Donbass. She's traveled to the Donbass, so please pray for her safety. She'll be back next week. We've had a whole week of shows, and we're going to have a whole continued week of shows. If you missed it Monday, we had Due Dissonance on the Combo Couch. Fun-ass show. Misty Winston jumped on. Today, I have a special show. On Friday, Whitney Webb will be the guest. She will be the guest of the show, but we're going to have a special guest co-host. It's a surprise. It's another anti-war person out there. I'm not going to let you know who it is. I'm not even letting Whitney know who it is. So this Friday, the Combo Couch, Fiorella will not be there, but I will be there. Special co-host, Whitney West is our guest, so we'll have a fun time. As I'm slurring all over the place, Wednesday show today, I have a small little panel planned. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. There's been a lot of talk of the isms out there, right? Socialism, capitalism, what should we go to? Anarchism, right? Anarchism is something that's, I think, is becoming a little bit more on the forefront nowadays. One of the ways, the persons, I should say, who I learned anarchism to be more of a beautiful thing, kind of applying the rules but not rulers point of view, was a guy by the name of Keith McHenry. And I figured, why not have a good discussion with not only Keith McHenry, but another guy I met the other day. I met him not too long ago. A friend of mine was telling me, said, you got to meet this guy. His name is Chuck. He's a green libertarian, or a libertarian green. I don't know how you want to classify him, but I got on the phone with him and we just started speaking. So I figured, let's have a panel where we can just have a campfire. We could talk about what's going on, our vision on life, our vision in government, what we can do moving forward. So I brought these two studs on for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Keith McHenry from Food Not Bombs and Chuck Ball, the Green Liberty Caucus, who will be able to talk to us about it. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Great.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks for having me.
Well,
hey, I just want to jump in. Pasta, I want to say I'm really delighted that you hooked me up with Keith. I've read Keith's stuff, and I'm really delighted to be here and to be able to talk about anarchism. I mean, this is a great topic.
I think there's a little anarchism in some of our, if we're a Green Party member, if we're a libertarian, whatever the case may be, I think there's that little anarchism rooted in us, understanding that power can corrupt and those at the top can control things. So why don't we just start with Keith McHenry right off the bat? Keith, tell us a little bit about what you do, what Food Not Bombs is about, and then tell us about what you got going on recently in your world.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Pasta, for having us on. So Food Not Bombs started in 1980, kind of as a reaction to the potential and what was clearly going to be the election of Ronald Reagan. And at the time, we were a bunch of young anarchists in Cambridge and Boston. And we were influenced by a couple of interesting projects, including the Living Theater, which has its roots in anarchism, mostly known for doing street performances in Manhattan, but as well as also in Europe. And so we came from kind of a theater perspective of trying to connect with people on the streets about important social issues. At that time, the neoliberal structural adjustment, the Chicago School economics, was going to be on the forefront. We assumed that would cause massive homelessness over time. So we started doing things like, for instance, a street theater where we were going to dress up as hobos and get our friends to come out, and we do a soup line in front of the stockholders meeting of the Bank of Boston at the Federal Reserve Bank. And we didn't have enough support for that as far as local activists, so I went to a homeless shelter, the only one at the time, the Pine Street Inn, and gave a speech about the protest. And the people there were like, oh, cool, protest like the 60s, and they showed up. And it was this huge impact on people walking by. That was what we were hoping, like the Living Theater, to have the public see the soup line and question the future of the Republican Party and the whole banking industry and so on. And that really launched us into being what people think of as Food Not Bombs now. Now we're an all-volunteer movement. We have no paid staff. We're in 1,000 cities of the world. We use anarchist principles to organize. So we've really introduced, I would say, there's probably roughly 50,000 people currently doing Food Not Bombs worldwide. And,
wow.
and it's a non-hierarchical, decentralized way of doing mutual aid. We were influenced by Emma Goldman and by Peter Kropotkin as the anarchist trend that we were most influenced by. And so, you know, we have their three principles. The food is always vegan and vegetarian and free to anyone, rich or poor, drunk or sober. Part of the reason for that is to build bridges between housed and unhoused people, and poor people and not so poor people. The second is that we have no directors, presidents, headquarters, that we make decisions using the consensus process, and that we include the people that are relying on our food to participate in the meetings to make those decisions in a non-hierarchical way. And then the third is that we're not a charity, but that we're dedicated to taking nonviolent direct action to change society so no one has to live in the street or eat at a soup kitchen.
Yeah.
And the pandemic has certainly altered things quite a bit. In Santa Cruz, like many places, our indoor soup kitchens all shut down. They're still shut down. It's almost 3 years later. And so we took up that slack, and we provide meals every single day. I just got done cooking with a crew of people here, and we're now doing the meal at the Town Clock downtown in Santa Cruz. We've had a lot of resistance by the city and by the county to our doing this. We were initially shut down from the Town Clock for violating COVID restrictions at the beginning because I took money I got from the sale of a small farm I had in New Mexico and spent it on buying hotel rooms for the homeless in the first weeks, because the people, the governor and everybody was saying, oh, we're going to give billions of dollars to put all the people inside because of the dangerous situation that is occurring. They had no interest in really doing that. There was, in fact, one of our volunteers was given a $1,000 ticket for not sheltering in place, even though his address on the ticket was transient because he lived outside. So we've been doing a lot of organizing for the civil rights in Santa Cruz, organizing for the civil rights of the people living outside, trying to stop the sweeps. This is very common for Food Not Bombs groups to be organizing around that. And we are essentially one with the unhoused community. You know, they're our friends, they're our family, and we are resisting this ever-growing clampdown against homeless people. In the state of California, the most recent one is Senate Bill 31, which will essentially make it criminal to sit, lie, or stand, or camp, or all kinds of things like that within what they call sensitive areas, and cities and jurisdictions are allowed to determine what those sensitive areas are. So in some places like San Francisco, it is estimated it will be illegal completely to be unhoused outside within the county. So those are some of the things that we're doing, plus trying to build some kind of a anti-war movement with people like Code Pink and so on against the Ukrainian war and the potential of a global nuclear war, which seems more talked about these days than in the past. So
I hope so. It's in the billions of dollars over there. We can't feed people in our own country. You're doing an amazing job. And like I said, I don't know if people understand this. When I read the foreword to Keith McHenry's book, The Anarchist Cookbook, I got this whole different vision of what I thought anarchism was. I got my partner, Steve Poikinen, who's an anarchist too as well, who's always been chiming in. But everything seemed to make sense when I read your foreword. Can you explain to us really, Keith, what anarchism is to you? And then we'll go right into Chuck and explain who Chuck is. And Chuck, I want your opinion on how anarchism plays a part in your ideology and your thinking. But go ahead, Keith. Tell us right off the bat, what is anarchism?
Well, the first thing that influenced me was when I was in the 5th grade and I read On Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. And that's what I decided that I was an anarchist at that time and have been that since. And so what it was is in his statement, which is most famous, the government governs best that governs least. So to me, it's about personal responsibility and working collectively as a group of equals to determine our own future. And that, I think, is the most important aspect, that it's non-hierarchical, it's community-based, it's not about nation states or centralized governments or Robert's Rules of Order and that kind of thing. It's about us all working collectively together to solve direct problems that of housing, shelter, culture, art, music, those kind of things, and to basically to be the architects of our own future without this kind of intervention of a church or of a government or a state or somebody that's an authority that somehow allegedly knows more about how society should be organized than we do. So fortunately, the pandemic actually was what made it wide open for anarchists to really flourish. And I think this is the second big wave of that, the first being the collapse of the Soviet Union. And so when the collapse of the Soviet Union happened, anarchists throughout Eastern and Central Europe started to really flourish. And that kind of monetary central control that communist parties often had in the left of Europe and the United States, Australia, was kind of diminished, and we were able to rise, to be more prominent in social movements against war, against poverty, against exploitation, slavery, in defense of the environment, those kinds of things.
It's funny because anarchism is taught, right, as no government, the fire, the craziness, the punk rockers, that's anarchism. Chuck, who is Chuck Fall? I think that's the first question we got to ask today. Who is Chuck Fall? And Chuck, what do you think about anarchism? Because we had some conversations. You actually have a caucus. Tell us about your caucus and what you do, and let's hear your thoughts on anarchism. So first, who is Chuck Fall?
So I'll just give some. So who is Chuck Fall?
Who is Chuck Fall?
I'm advancing green liberty. I'm advancing green liberty, and just to give some background, in 11th grade of high school took a Asian studies class, and we studied the Minamata ecological disaster that crippled through mercury poisoning children because mothers were eating fish that was laden with poisons and toxins. And that was 11th grade. I didn't read Civil Disobedience until 11th grade. 5th grade, way above my reading skill set. But I was influenced by civil disobedience. I was influenced by environmental disaster. And I'm basically kind of a deep ecologist, nature lover, and but always inclined towards the anarchist. And I actually took a couple of college classes in anarchism, a philosophy class and a literature class. And I realized, well, this is where this is my philosophical home, and became my philosophy teacher. Said, well, given all my kind of, I dare say, rantings about the environment, the philosophy professor said, well, you should read Murray Bookchin, because he's in effect fused ecology with anarchism. And Bookchin was raised a Trotskyite, and he was on the streets of Manhattan or wherever he was, on a soapbox, preaching the gospel of workers rise up and revolt. So I grew up with this in my background, got involved in the Green Party in Oregon. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and got involved in the late 90s. But I've also always been a kind of a truther. I've always been skeptical about the 9/11 stuff. Well, 9/11 subsequent, even JFK. I was always suspicious of official narratives and never quite, and so on. And I didn't, and I accepted that there's deep state, there's plutocracy. And so I went into Green Party and was told on a discussion list that we don't talk about conspiracies, we don't talk about JFK, we don't talk about 9/11, we don't talk about chemtrails. We talk about basically status quo, and we confine our narrative within the confines of what the criticism now is essentially a kind of Democratic Party, Bernie-cratic kind of perspective. And so through inspiration, through conversation with a good friend of mine, I said, well, we need a Green Liberty Caucus. We need someone to stake out on the kind of, and I'm a left libertarian, I'm social libertarian, collective communalist, and on the Green Liberty Caucus site, there's a little button for libertarian municipalism. I accept Bookchin's analysis that if we're going to have political evolution, then we, the people, need to establish grassroots democracy within free cities and effectively confederate. That's going to be the place where any transformative thing happens. Now, that's way abstract. That's way out there. I want to just quickly acknowledge Keith for his frontline grassroots, existence in doing struggle and advancing the work. So in any case, I work within the Green Party. I'm associated with Green Renaissance. It's an organization, 501c4, and we're trying to, in effect, kind of call it radicalize the Green Party. And it's an existing institution. It has potential. Right now, there's a lot of infighting over what's our position on the COVID. And so, and I'll just kind of wrap up with this and then and say that Green Liberty Caucus explicitly calls out state crimes. And I'm inspired by the work of Cynthia McKinney and the address she made to the Lawyers Committee for 9/11. It's posted on the website. And basically I've read George Woodcock, the Peter Kropotkin biography. Mm-hmm. And Kropotkin really says he's inspired by indignation at injustice. He was inspired by indignation at seeing slavery in Russia in the 1840s when he grew up. And he was, among the aristocracy. And that's what I'm in touch with. And that's what I invite that we build movement around, is our indignation at the lies, the theft of our democracy through the assassination of JFK, the 60s leaders. This was a revolutionary period. JFK, Mount Martin Luther were 2 days after, the celebrating Martin Luther King. I suggest we should celebrate him and remember him on the day he was assassinated, because he was going to lead, he would have led our nation, our country, into a much more just, anti-militaristic society. And that was robbed from us. 9/11 robbed us of civil liberties and just a cemented national security surveillance state. And now we have COVID. What's from the work of Sasha Latyapova's being revealed to be, in effect, a Department of Defense operation affecting countermeasures against we the people through this fraudulent COVID business. So, the Green Party needs to lead on this stuff. We need to lead on the lies by opposing the lies, and simultaneously speak positively and proactively to building an ecological society that's not riddled with toxins. I mean, we can work on multiple fronts on this, and we obviously have to, but this is where I am, and this is an invitation. People can go to greenliberty.org. They can share their information. The goal is to build a chapter in every state and basically influence the Green Party to take leadership. Chuck out.
So I have, what is a green libertarian? Or is it a libertarian green? It seems that you are not necessarily just the everyday Green Party member, because it's very diverse, right? It's all over the place. And I think the Green Party is having a hard time trying to figure out where they are at today, especially when it comes to leadership. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're using the Green Party as a vessel to put forth certain issues or what's the word I'm saying, to heighten the awareness of certain areas or certain topics that you want to get out to the public that maybe not be talked about. Would that be a correct assessment there of what
so
a green libertarian is?
you're close. Yeah. You're very close, and I appreciate that you're posing that, because it gives me a chance to just clarify. I mean, so basically, I'm an anarchist who believes in good government. So I reject this, no rules, no order. That's rubbish. People need structure. We need institutions. As an anarchist, I'm driven by a criticism of hierarchy and domination. So I believe in we the people. I believe in collective freedom. I believe in personal freedom. I'm in the Green Party because it's the political party that I'd like to vote for if I have a candidate. So I support running candidates. But what do our candidates say? Everything that I stake out under the Green Liberty kind of rubric of and there's documents, and you can see it's basically I accept all the green principles. I accept all the green platform. I accept that we're going to have a cooperative society. It's going to be we have to capitalism is highly problematic, and it's grow or die imperative, and so on. So I share all those values. Where I think we've failed, and I'll just give you this example. I think that if Green Party had been on point relative to relentlessly pursuing truth around 9/11, that we would be relevant today. That we've become irrelevant by being silent on the crimes, on state crimes. So what I'm doing, and this, why, on what grounds do I, as a Green, make criticism of state crimes? Well, because one of the things that Greens oppose is corruption in corrupt government. We have a problem with the plutocracy, stealing from we the people. So it's indignation at the corruption and the lies in order to advance a plutocratic imperative to accumulate as much power as it possibly can. And we are now living through this culmination of impunity. The elites have impunity to conduct these crimes. And look at where we are today. We're at a point where Sasha Latyapoova, gets on TV, gets on the internet, and she shares, hey, gang, the Department of Defense has just advanced a fraudulent vaccine program on the world population. What do you think of that? Well, so we're living through cognitive dissonance. We're living through a state of a perpetual trauma. Generations of trauma have induced us to lose capacity to talk together. And I just want to say to Pasta that I saw the show where you had the libertarians, you had Jimmy Dore on, and you guys were talking together across the continuum of of libertarian ideologies, looking for this common ground for organizing and for building movement, and for, I don't know how this is possibly going to unfold.
Yeah.
But I know that absolutely critical is having these conversations. And so one of the criticisms as Green Liberty is of some of the existing people in the Green Party is, in the time I've been there, the Alaska group got kicked out for not voting for Howie and following the script from the national level.
Yeah.
And the Georgians got kicked out because they want to stake out the rights of women to control their spaces and so on. So the existing kind of status quo in the Green Party is political correctness, wokeness, and anybody who diverges from that is bigot and to be not tolerated.
Yeah.
So Green Liberty is advancing a big tent. It's going to, our revolution, our transformation, our salvation is in the unity of left and right. And the authoritarians just need to stand down, step back, abstain if these conversations about state crimes are uncomfortable. Don't get in the way, get out of the way, but support the cause, for freedom.
Okay, let's piggyback on it. We'll circle back the wagons in a second, Chuck, to the Green Party as a whole and what their issues are and stuff, because obviously I can hear from the both of you what you guys are all about, what you're against. And this is overreaching fascist authoritarian governments. My question to Keith right now, right off the bat, is, Keith, is anarchism obtainable? I mean, can we reach a spot where we can get to some form of anarchism? And how will that happen? How do you see that happening?
Well, I do think that probably under the current conditions of globalization and repression and so on, the only way for future survival is through adopting some types of anarchist principles. I think that's the resistance. So, for instance, with Food Not Bombs and what we're doing here in Santa Cruz, we don't, we have a worldwide policy of not accepting or requesting permission to do, survival actions like serving free food. So we maintain our independence from the city of Santa Cruz, from the county of Santa Cruz, state of California, from the U.S. We are outside of that, creating our own systems and culture ourselves. And I think the other thing that's wonderful about anarchism is this, it's outside the box, open-minded way of trying to observe reality as it is, and then adapting the way of our living to the reality of what is happening, as opposed to imposing some kind of outside, structure that does not take that into account. And it's great hearing about Murray Bookchin, as I used to attend a lot of those New England anarchist gatherings with Bookchin and had a lot of arguments with him, and his books are fantastic. And I think also it's really interesting in the Anarchist Cookbook that I write about Bookchin's influence on particularly on the largest free state, so-called, in the world, which is in Kurdish area of YPK and all of them, and a lot of their ideology. I'm not. I guess it makes sense to be armed. I've also but I am against armed conflict, but that can end up happening, and of course have cautioned them from accepting aid from the United States government, which is helpful in a war, but is a good way to be crushed in the end. So, and I lived in Turkey, so I was very interested in that matter, and that's why that's in the book. So I do think that no matter what kind of authoritarian structure believes that they can maintain control, the actual survival of our future is, I think, rooted in anarchism. And I sort of like the book 1984 or many other dystopian areas of literature. there will be the out society and the in society. There'll be the people that got vaccinated, that actually are into it and believe that that was that the whole like that and the war with Ukraine and all is the real thing that we all need to get behind. So there's going to be those people that are like allowed in to the mainstream society or invited in or coerced into it. And then there's going to be those of us that live outside that will be, in my opinion, will be flourishing.
Yeah.
And that's because we're not chained to some kind of way of thinking that something has to be a certain way. As long as we keep to our principles, that we're not above somebody. We're not going to like coerce people into doing things. We're not going to do any of that.
Without the party, though, Keith, how do you make that possible? Because obviously, on paper, I would agree with Chuck that the Green Party probably is more aligned with my values than anything else. If you go back to the old school Green Party, right? However, it's got crazy problems, and we'll get back to that in a second, and we'll pinpoint some of the problems that are taking place with the Green Party, let alone the leadership right now is just ridiculous. Without a party vessel, right, how do you obtain some form of anarchy? Is it going to be a revolution? Is it going to be when the fall of the government happens? How do we get to anarchism if we don't have the vessel of a party to drive it into existence?
Well, I don't think you need a political party or of that. You just have to create collective organizations. So the earliest model that I was involved in at the time of working with Murray Bookchin, which is how we connected, was with Clamshell Alliance, and that was to stop the Seabrook Nuclear Power Station. And we had a structure. Our structure was that you had your affinity group. So, for instance, our example here would be the local Food Not Bombs chapter in Santa Cruz being an affinity group, and then you had clusters of affinity groups. So we had like the Boston Cambridge cluster of groups, and then we had like a New England wide body where representatives of your affinity group would attend cluster meetings. Cluster meetings would then go to the New England wide federation of affinity groups. But to go forward on any kind of joint action of the entire New England community, it came down to all the representatives of each of the affinity groups coming to an agreement at a cluster meeting, and so on. So that was not a political party aspect, but we did actually we were also in 1981 and 80 promoting the formation of the Green Party in New England. And there was for much of the history of the Green Party, the consensus decision-making process that we were using for Food Not Bombs was actually officially adopted by the Green Party. Then that kind of went by the wayside. And I remember Christian Cinnamon, the senator. Yeah, she was like a big deal in the Green Party at the national conference in Tucson, and you could really feel like this struggle between hierarchy and decentralization. And then there was Brian Tokar and others that were like, we should be like not so trying to run candidates yet and stuff. We need to build like a infrastructure of non-hierarchical, decentralized community groups aligned to the Green Party. And so I witnessed that kind of thing. And then she did local to global and invited me to speak there a bunch of times. I used to do that a lot in Tempe at Arizona State University, attend to their events every year. So it's been a really interesting phenomena. So it's not like that there shouldn't be a Green Party. In fact, I was one of the. I remember when the Green Party posted this like authoritarian that they were down with all authoritarian measures of mandates and everything surrounding the COVID crisis, and I wrote all of them really pretty upset because they fortunately had put their email addresses on the group that had made that statement. And it turned out that one of the activists was African American Food Not Bombs organizer, and she was agreed with my position, and then they actually got the Black Caucus of the Greens to denounce the mandates and forced in vaccinations and other things. And so they're, so it's not like that there is no place for a Green Party. I'm not opposed to that. But it's not absolutely necessary to create an anarchist future to have particular political parties necessarily. And
I like the inside-outside structure, though. I like the fact that you're saying that you don't necessarily need the party, but I like the fact what Chuck is doing and some of our friends. And I just want to highlight that what you're talking about right now, and this Green Party is really in shambles right now. I have some friends of mine who get really upset when I say this. You got friends of mine who get upset, like, why are you looking into the Libertarian Party as a vessel? Because they got ballot access, and there's a lot of things I agree with libertarians when it comes to freedom of speech, freedom of the press, non-intervention, all those things. Gets into the economics, we start battling, we start knocking our heads, but yet I'll compromise to get the things that are important for me to be pushed forward, and that includes giving people food, not bombs, right? And the pun over here and stuff like that. But let's concentrate on Chuck for a second. Chuck, Keith just mentioned about the whole mandate situation. We had the steering committee of the Green Party coming out, talking about being pro-mandate, pro-vaccine, and just ignoring the history of the Black community and the Black caucus, who had to come out and start speaking against what the steering committee has done. We've also heard Howie Hawkins, who's now been their anointed leader, who's going to run again. The guy is 0-26. He's a Russia hawk. He's all for, the foreign policy from Howie Hawkins. Plus, we're also hearing that they're not protecting women's spaces within the women's caucus in the Green Party. This party seems to be in shambles. What's wrong with the Green Party today? And is it worth trying to save, Chuck? Maybe Mr. McHenry has a point here, and we don't necessarily need a party as a vessel to try to usher in some form of anarchism or anti-imperialist mentality. Go ahead and give us your point of views on what's going on there now today.
Well, I would agree with Keith that in order to make, an anarchist society, that probably the parties would be an impediment to that. They'd get in the way. They would be a distraction. And in fact, Murray Bookchin would probably denounce me for being engaged in a political party while at the same time espousing an anarchist philosophy. It's too contradictory, paradoxical, doesn't add up. You're a contradiction. Stop it. But I'm a mercenary for a whim, and I will work on multiple fronts. And the Green Movement, in fact, works on multiple fronts on account of the work of Food Not Bombs and so on. So so in terms of the whole Green Party, it's divided. Yeah, it's divided, and it doesn't. People don't talk together. That's one of the. I'm strong on dialogue. I'm strong on let's talk honestly together. And this COVID divide is so profound, and it is so evocative of the splits in society when people question JFK's assassination. They were turned conspiracy theorists by the CIA in that famous memo of 1967. Anybody who started questioning 9/11 was conspiracy theorist, and now anybody who questions the COVID narrative is conspiracy theorist and slurred with this brand. So to me, in our movement, we are divided, and it is, I think, so let me just say where the premise that I'm working on. I'm working on a theory that the Green Party can grow its ranks if we explicitly call out the corrupted rot of our republic that's manifest through the captured regulatory agencies, the deep state operations, and now this absolutely heinous federal COVID response. And so I'm in the minority. People don't want to hear this in the Green Party, but I'm there. I'm a delegate. I get.
Why not start your own party, Chuck? Chuck, I don't mean to interrupt. I mean, you're talking about all these things, and we're talking about the divided and pulling our hair out.
That's fair. That's fair. it may very well be that the Green Party, as we know it, the Green Party US, will fall apart on its own accord. It's tentative. It's on the edges. It's not growing. People aren't drawn to it. People are alienated from it precisely for the reason that was described. Against Black National against the steering committee. And the steering committee at the Green Party US has not retracted that statement. It's just preposterous. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's unconscionable to be talking about advancing COVID mandates or COVID vaccines, especially to children. So these are very problematic positions. Now, start another party. Well, we have the People's Party. We could all join the Libertarian Party. The Green Party exists, so that's why I'm there. The Green Liberty Caucus, the spirit of the caucus, the purpose of the caucus, forming a Green Liberty bloc can happen outside the Green Party. It doesn't need the Green Party to build out a Green Liberty bloc. A Green Liberty bloc is going to be the unity of left and right around basically calling for accountability. Basically, people need to be prosecuted. Pasta, we're not going to change society unless people who have committed crimes are held to account, even if it means posthumous trials and so on. I mean, I'm talking about an international tribunals. There's conversations about, I saw Emmanuel Pastrick on an interview of a 9/11 Pilots for Truth. And the 9/11 Pilots for Truth represented that an association of Islamic states are potentially going to convene in a tribunal to look into what really happened around 9/11. We haven't had that in this country. It's taboo. You cannot talk about it and get any discussion. Now, this is why do I target and focus on, instead of the injustices of the economic system and the oppression of workers and so on, why don't I focus on that? Why do I focus on the state crimes? Well, I'm focusing on it because I feel indignant about it. But I also focus on it because I have a theory that can be what galvanizes the masses. Workers, retirees, children, whomever, people across the spectrum could potentially be brought into a common consciousness of, we've been ripped off, we've been snookered, enough is enough. We need justice. We need democracy. We need a future that we can, and our future is not going to come from the world economic, from the globalists, from the plutocracy. It's going to come because we, the people at grassroots level, in effect, turn our cities into mutual aid associations. That's kind of where I'm coming at with this. I mean, the socialist bloc and the Green Party say we need a workers' revolution, a workers to rise up, and in the classical sense that Marx posed. Well, how did that work during World War I? How did it work during World War II? How is it working? I don't know where the workers, unity is. It is for Amazon workers and at the labor fronts, but I think we need to go beyond that. I think we need to go into a sense of being ripped off, and our democracy has been trod upon. That great, beautiful arc of justice that MLK envisioned for the development of humankind was crumbled and shattered and blown up in the 60s assassinations. We as a nation have not recovered from that. The 9/11 further traumatized our nation. We have been turned into cognitive dissonant sheep. I'll say it.
That's good. You could say sheep. Listen, what we're going to do really one second is, and let me just say this much really quick. I think it's great that you started your caucus within the Green Party. You're using it as a vessel. I'm trying to use the Libertarian Party as a vessel. It has it has ballot access. The inside-outside game, I think, works well. I know that anarchism is about no government and probably doesn't like parties. But, we have to work with the system that's there. And I think as long as we keep our head on straight, it would be cool. I want to get your guys' opinion since it's mentioned so many times. I'm going to start with Keith. Ladies and gentlemen, I just put the link to the Rumble in the chat. We're going to dip off YouTube because we're going to talk a little bit about 9/11 because we said the 9/11 word 4 times. And when you say it 4 times, you get the ding bell and you got to talk about it. Keith started Food Not Bombs. And I want to get his opinion first. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put it down there one last time in the chat. Guys, you see it? I just put it up now. There's a link to the Rumble. We're going to go off YouTube. You can go on our Rockfin if you're a premium member. Go to Rockfin or go to Rumble. We're going to leave YouTube. We're going to talk about 9/11. In fact, let me just put the banner up there so y'all can see. Thoughts on 9/11. We're going to start with Keith, but we're going to leave YouTube in 5, in 4, in 3. Hold on a second. In 2. Trying to leave. How do you leave? Hold on. Get this straight. I think it's this one. Okay, here it is. We're leaving YouTube, guys. Hit the link. Go over to Rumble. We're going to finish the last 10, 15 minutes over there. We're out of YouTube now. See